A lot of you think funnels are an online thing, and the one that I've drawn up on the board is a typical online process. But actually, a funnel is just a way to take someone from being a cold lead or someone who's never heard of you to becoming a client or a customer. And that's online or offline. So for example, offline, it might be that you walk the gym floor, you talk to X many amount of people per day, and of those people, a percentage will take up a free consult with you, and of those taking up the free consult, a percentage will go on and become a client. That is a funnel in itself, and the reason to know your numbers through the funnel is to improve it or to set yourself new targets. I'll show you with an online example here, so I hope you can see most of this. So it starts with traffic. So traffic is just a word for the people out there. So if we were taking Facebook as an example, there are millions and millions and millions on Facebook, and we are trying to get them to come into a process where they're going to buy from us. So we're going to drive traffic. We're going to try and get attention, and we can do it in a number of ways. We can do it through adverts. We can do it through blogs. We can do it through video. We can do it through testimonials, and you get the idea. So that is just generating an interest and getting them to come to a point where they want closer contact with us. And traditionally, that would be an opt-in of some sort. By opt-in, we mean something they're going to get from us that creates a better relationship and establishes us as an expert in what we're talking about. So often the most common you see is an ebook. Recently, it would be a Facebook group, sometimes with like a 7-day challenge. It can be video, it could be a short course. The idea being that these opt-ins are free and we get their email from them, and potentially even more contact detail than an email, maybe a telephone number and address, because then we can use snail mail, we can text message, we can phone, etc. So the idea of the email is to establish the relationship even further and build trust through storytelling, anecdotes, analogies, sharing testimonials, anything that kind of builds a trust that we're still this expert. Then you actually get to potentially an entry offer. In other words, at this point, all of this from the consumer point of view has been free. They've never had to pay a penny for the content and knowledge that you're putting out. So at some point you want to convert them from free to a paying client. And we would do that normally with an entry offer. And an entry offer is just a small amount to get them used to the idea of paying us. So typically you'll see in America $7. Obviously in the UK we're talking about £7. And that will be for a specific product or feature that we're selling. It might be a book, it might be a cookbook, for example. It might be a very basic 6-week workout plan. You see people selling very basic nutrition plans for this sort of price, because the idea is we want them to get used to buying from us. It's that thing that once people have started paying for something, they're more open to paying in future and at higher amounts. Sorry, my dog's going off in the background. It's kind of off-putting for me. Right, once they've come into our entry offer, then we make them the mid-price offer, or even the thing that you're mostly selling. So that might be, for example, a 6-week transformation. And remember, this isn't necessarily online. You can consider this as an offline funnel as well. And there are different ways to get that traffic. So 6-week transformation might be our standard offer, and it might be something like £97. And then the idea is either we get them on a recurring from here, or, so that might go to a recurring, recurring, or we're selling a higher end offer, a more substantial thing. So they do the 6-week transformation, they get awesome results. Now would they like to continue for maybe 12 weeks or 6 months? Or in a smaller group, for example. So if you were doing boot camps, you might then go to semi-private. And then we work our way all the way down. I'm going to tip this video just a little bit to the mastermind, which is what your internet gurus would use. Or for you, it might be one-to-one, it might be a retreat. This is your high-end, not many people will buy it type product. So as you can see, the reason it's called a funnel is it comes down in this big V. In other words, at the top, you need a huge amount of people to take just one down to the very bottom, because at each stage you lose people. So at each stage, even at the free stage, people don't open the ebook, so the crosses come down, there are not as many. Then when we get to the paying, they drop off a little bit more. Then when we get to the actual mid-price, it's beginning to come down even further. Then when we get to our, 3-month or 6-month, we're talking even less. And then when we get to our really high-end stuff, we're talking very, very few people. So that, as quickly as I could do it, is what people mean when they talk about funnels or sales funnels. And as you can see, the biggest challenge for most people is this bit: getting the huge amounts of traffic, getting them to actually take notice of the free, and then that initial conversion into some kind of entry offer. So yesterday we did about funnels and what a funnel really is, and talked our way through this big V shape of how you go from a huge volume of traffic all the way down to your most highest end product or service. And when we were talking about huge volumes of traffic, we said this was one of the key sticking points for most people. So what we're going to do today is go through sources of traffic. So let me just get rid of some of this very quickly. Okay, so where can we find traffic, which is basically people? So it obviously depends whether you're offline, online, combination of both. So offline, this can be that you work within a gym, a large commercial gym, a small studio. You could be mobile, put mobile here for now. Online, most people are operating through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some people are using LinkedIn. And then obviously you can actually be doing a bit of both. You could be working offline and online. So when we're thinking about the funnel, this gives us a huge amount of people, perhaps too many people to target, which is why marketers often talk about avatars. In some situations, an avatar or an ideal person are quite important, particularly when we're working purely online. But if you're in a large commercial gym, you have what we call footfall traffic. In other words, people who are already members of the gym. And the way you may target them is just simply through things like chatting, friendly, getting in with, say, the marketing and recruitment side of the gym. So they pass referrals to you. You might be doing some classes. You might well be offering free consultations. You might actually be doing some gym inductions. Whatever it is that you're doing, don't forget that you want to do some kind of call to action. In other words, to take them further than just this. So, for example, if you are doing some classes, you might mention at the end of the class that you do semi-private group training, or that you do one-to-one training, but you also want to mention the benefits to that training, and ask them if they'd like to just sign up on the clipboard at the back of the room if they're interested in finding out more details. And that sign up will have things like email, phone number, address, that type of thing, what they're interested in, or maybe you've only got one thing that you're offering. So all of this is actually traffic. But when we look at things like who our ideal client is, and in some of these situations, like being mobile, having a small studio, or being online, we can't target everyone, because even within the UK, the total population is now 65 million. So we have to have some kind of definition. Now, if we're working mobile or in a small studio, one of the definitions would be geography. Where they are, how far people are willing to travel, or how far you're willing to travel to work with them. Okay, so geography is like a massive one for you, and it might be even within that geography, if you're in a big city, there's still too many people. So you might well take that down to income, type of work, whether they're male or female. One thing people tend to miss out on when they do this is the type of person. Now this, I'm just going to put it up here, it's getting a bit messy. It's quite important. I mean, what type of person do you want to coach? You know, not just within the age or the sex or whatever, but are they chatty? Are they outgoing? Are they self-determined? Are they people who need more coaching? You can take it down to, is it with people with injuries? That type of thing. Because you don't want, and you'll all have had, the odd client who just depresses you and doesn't quite get you, and it's a strain and a stress to work with them. So that's why type of person is even more important in some ways than their sort of spending level. Okay, but when we go to online, we're not just looking then at things like the locality, the income, the type of person, how we're going to meet them. We're also looking at things like, well, if we've got 65 million in the UK, how on earth are we going to do that globally? Because there's even more people. So as soon as we get to online, we do start to look at ideal client and niching. Now, just because you have a niche doesn't mean you can't expand your niche. You know, so you can start small with a small niche, and we'll go into that in more detail tomorrow, and expand it out from there, depending on how much you get a take up of offer and how much income you're earning from it. Now, this combo is interesting because I meet a lot of people who want to start online businesses, and they're already working offline, and they're seeing it as a second income, or potentially a second income they can develop to become their primary income so they can travel. Right, so when you're doing a combo and you want to start an online service, most people overcomplicate this, because the obvious place to go to get your online up and running and get it earning some money for you is ex-clients and current clients. Now that isn't niching, It's still online. I'm saying niches are important in online, but the advantage of getting these people into any program that you're going to run online is that it gives you immediate income. They already know, like and trust you, so we're getting over that problem of all that free content to convert them. So it can give you immediate income. They've got the know, like, trust. And they're going to be an awesome source of testimonials and referrals. Right, that's a very brief overview. I filled the board, so it's definitely time to stop. We go into niching and avatars in slightly more detail, because for online in particular, it's important when we look at the size of the global market. There's 3 different ways to approach a marketplace. You've got this little diagram, you've got this little diagram, and you've got this little diagram. And when we're looking at online, this is our optimal. Why? Because it's narrow to narrow. In other words, it might just be you to a small audience, which is obviously a niche. The reason that these don't necessarily work online, although this is the slightly better option, is because of this global marketplace. So this is you to a huge amount of people. Now, unless you have a massive online reputation already or the ability to have a huge budget for promotions, this is going to be incredibly difficult to achieve. Whereas this would be lots of different experts, so at least you bring in their ability to help with promotions, their ability to reach out to people, and the audience that you're targeting is narrow. And there are some models like this, for example. LTB has this model. VIP had this model, which is a band of experts delivering to a smallish, but not necessarily very small, niche. So that was delivering to the fitness niche. But the one we're looking at from your point of view is narrow to narrow. So what is a niche? Well, what it's not is something like fitness or weight loss. Although that appears to be a niche, it's not small enough for this narrow to narrow. It's actually this, which is way too much. So how do you choose an actual niche for online? You need to think about the 4 Ps. So that would be prune, person, and although I hate the use of this, their pain, and what the profit is. And this is why you need a plan. So you need to get this down. That's the prune. So for example, when we prune this, what are some trending or current problems that people are looking at? So trending and current problems might be diabetes. It might be a bit more, that'll be on the health side. On the sort of vanity fitness side, it might be getting abs. So now we're starting to prune a little bit. Not hugely yet, because we're going to go back to this formula. So what sort of person are we going to be looking at? Okay, so for diabetes, we might be looking at type 2, and they might be over a certain age, say 45 plus. I actually have some Indian genealogy, and diabetes type 2 actually is higher in Asian communities, so you might well be thinking Asian community. And then you might be thinking, actually, well, let's do female. And you're starting to narrow it down. Yeah, with getting abs, okay, who's interested in getting abs? Well, you've got females and males nowadays getting abs. But the trending would be all these male fitness models, so I'd be looking at men. And then you might go, okay, who's really, really of the males into having abs? And that might be a certain age range. So we might say 21 to 35. We might say they have to be single. And we might take it even further. Guys who really look after themselves might also potentially be gay. So now we are pruning this niche according to not the traditional stuff, which used to be things like geography, income, you know, education. Obviously male, female was one. But actually, we're now pruning according to what's popular and trending and therefore likely to get traffic, particularly if we do some blogs and videos and stuff like that. And we can actually do sort of a long key word search on this to find out what's popular in these niches and what's trending. And I'd also recommend BuzzSumo for that as well, looking at popular articles on this. And you can actually check that getting abs fast, for example, would be a popular topic by checking things like searching on things like Udemy, Facebook, doing a Twitter hashtag search, YouTube, you know, even your Snapchat and Instagrams, your Kindle books. Seeing how popular a niche this is, what the level of competition's like, what the shares are like, what your potential long SEO words would be like, to help you establish whether this is a niche you should be getting into, getting abs fast, for example. Then we have to look at the pain points. Okay, now this isn't like really dragging it out for people as to why they're in so much pain. It's what problem are you solving when you go to this niche? Because that's the point. What are you solving for them? You're solving the problem that they don't have abs and they'd like abs. That's the problem you're solving. That's your 100% message in this narrow to narrow niche. You're going to help gay men who are single between 21 and 35 solve the problem that they want to look buff and get some really good abs on them. Yeah? Okay, and then is this a profitable niche? Is there a way that you can make money from this niche in return for your expertise in resolving this problem? So, for example, do the people that we're targeting have reasonable disposable income? Well, generally, gay men don't have families. They do nowadays, but at a certain age level, they're less likely to have a family. So therefore, they are more likely to have a disposable income. There will be another way to create profit is in the affiliate market. So are there companies selling products and services that you can align yourself to create extra sales once you've got an audience by providing affiliate links and that type of thing? So that might be clothing, supplements. It could even be, if you get a really good audience here, holiday companies. So you have to think outside the box a little bit. So the only other questions to really ask yourself if you're looking to create this online business and you've, you know, starting to determine a really good niche and it's checking out on all your searches, is are you passionate enough about this topic because to make a living, because you are going to be writing about it, doing photos, videos, adverts, a huge amount. So it's got to be something you can talk about in depth, because the more in depth you go, the better it is for your SEO. Sorry, this is getting really messy, but it always does, doesn't it? The longer an article is, and the deeper it goes into a subject, the better Google likes it for ranking. The more likely you are to show up on things like BuzzSumo, for example, and become the expert. So do you have enough passion about this particular niche and topic to do all of this? Do you actually have the knowledge or expertise, or can you go and get it? Because you do need to be an expert in the subject. You can't just waffle your old way through it. Are you going to have the time? Because people seem to think online is really, really fast, and it isn't. You need the time to put into this. I mean, we are looking 1 to 3 years of not full-time work, but pretty extensive work in building this content and building this traffic. No matter, well, if you've got millions behind you, maybe not, but at your level, having some money to put into it on the stuff that matters, which at this point is your marketing, and being able emotionally and time-wise as well to continually follow up on all of this to create this awesome niche. So when you see overnight successes that have got these niches that you think, my God, they're making millions, like the body coach. I mean, he had actually quite a big, model there. But he did do it on a newish platform, Instagram. And if you look back on how much they were posting, how much content they were putting out there, you will find this years to years to years. It's not overnight, it's not sudden. Yes, it can be a blueprint, but that blueprint isn't a shortcut. That blueprint simply helps you plan so that you know who, what, when, where, how. Hey, so we're starting with the blank board for a change. So we've already covered things like offline, which is kind of where our focus is at the moment on these funnels. And we've looked at when we go offline, you can either go with ex-clients and current clients, and that's a very quick way to set up an offline, or you're going completely into a new marketplace. And if you're going into a new marketplace, then you need to look at niching. But yesterday or the day before, we discussed that most people are doing too big a model for online, which is you to a huge niche, and you need vast amounts of money and a massive reputation to even start that. Others are doing this version, which is the experts, lots of people to a smaller niche. And for most people, the way to go online is actually to go narrow to narrow, which meant defining your niche further than just weight loss. And we went through some niche criteria. Something that also helps you define your online niche is actually your avatar. Now, I don't like the word avatar because it sounds a bit weird. It sounds like you're talking about blue people. So let's just call them ideal client. Now, a lot of people make the mistake that the ideal client is somebody who is a mirror image of them. But actually, if you're a unique person, there's no such thing as a mirror image of you. However, we are going to ask the same questions of ourselves as we would our avatar, because we're hoping to find a middle ground. So in other words, the person's pretty similar to you, but they're slightly different. So let's put a few differences on. Okay, they're not a mirror image, they're just a little bit different to you. And by asking these questions, the ones coming up, we'll be able to find out who they are, who you are, and where that middle ground is. So the very first question we're going to ask ourselves is, who are you? Now, to give you an idea of how to answer that, let's talk about me for a little bit. So I run an online business. I have 30 years marketing experience. My online business is in the health and fitness niche, and it's actually to fitness professionals. So I niche quite a lot there. And actually there's more niching on that fitness professionals, because there are only certain types of fitness professionals and gyms that I would want to come into my business. I'm qualified in marketing as well as experienced, and I've worked for international companies or global companies, and obviously I've now become a business owner. So that's kind of who I am. There's more to who I am, because obviously we're going to break some questions down more when you're asking these questions of yourself. So you're actually going to say, how old are you? Okay, you don't actually have to tell me how old you are. I can tell you I'm 49 and a half. Okay, any compliments about the fact I don't look it, gratefully received. Where do you come from? Now, this isn't what part of the country you were born in or anything like that. It's more about who were you in the past and where are you now. And this will help you establish your journey to what's brought you here. So why I went into running an online business to fitness professionals was I'd been a client. I've got a history of yo-yo dieting. I'm incredibly vain. I love to cook. I love my food, which might be why I've got a history of yo-yo dieting. And so you can see this picture starts to build up, so it makes sense for me to have gone this way. What's your education level, or what is your qualifications? We've covered that for me a little bit. I've got a degree and all sorts of stuff, postgrads, education, qualifications, because you're more likely, when we look at your avatar, to get on with someone similar to yourself in some ways. Someone who has, for me, it would be someone who's continued their education. So, you know, because I'm a graduate and postgrad, 2 postgrads, it's not you have to have a degree, it's just that you've shown an interest in learning and progressing and improving, if you like. Marital and family status, it does give us like an insight to our life, because I almost have 2 avatars in a way, because with the FPCR, although it's targeted at fitness professionals and gyms, it's to help their clients more, and their clients more are kind of a reflection of me, if you like. So I'm single parent, I've been married twice, my kids are getting older now, so they're now 10, nearly 14 and 18. They weren't when I first became a single parent, they were 3, 5 and 10, so it's been a while. And these also reflect things like my time available, you know, my sort of hobbies, interests, activities, that type of thing. And we are actually going to go into those questions anyway. So my, you know, my family status is important, my marital status is important, my education, I'll just put that as a separate title, is important to who I am. My work background is important to who I am. And you're answering these questions from your point of view, not my point of view, obviously. What inspires you? Now, remember the other day we talked about passion, and that if you go online, it's actually really hard work, unlike what some of the other sort of mentors might say, and therefore it's got to be something that inspires you. Food ridiculously inspires me. If you ever look at my Instagram when I'm traveling, you'll see it's full of food. What else inspires me? I think I do actually enjoy building businesses. I actually do enjoy new product developments and actually taking them through, not just the ideas, but I like the action, I like the planning, I like the strategy. These may not seem like massive inspirations because they're pretty much business orientated, but if you know me, you know actually that I'm not woo-woo, I'm not airy-fairy. So, you know, autumnal leaves are lovely, and don't get me wrong, I quite like autumn. I don't like it gets colder, but it doesn't inspire me. Getting results inspires me. So we could call it getting results. And that might be the same for you. Getting results with your clients might be what inspires you. Right, so what are your beliefs? This is another question you need to ask yourself. There's loads of these. Obviously, what are your beliefs? I mean, they could be religious if you want them to be. They're not in my case. So what are the fundamental things that you believe? Well, I believe actually you only have one life. And I think that's a very fundamental belief for me. I also believe that you can't let your past affect your future, that you just need to move on. It's past. So, you know, past shouldn't affect your future. I actually do believe in security. I'm not a great nomad. I like my creature comforts, that type of thing. So different beliefs, you know, beliefs that you should support your children in whatever they do, that type of thing. Support children no matter what their choices are. You know, I do actually believe in education as well. Massive believer in education and to a certain extent qualifications. I think there's a reason for them. Because to me it widens your perspective on things and it gives you a more questioning mind. So I like questioning minds as well, and problem solving abilities. So you can see how all these beliefs for me link, yeah, and they will for you. When you start to do these questions for you, you will start to see some links. Things you might sort of, you know, consider is, you know, what are your hobbies and interests? Now, I don't have any particular hobbies, to be honest, but interests does reflect the sort of business I've put about, because I've got an interest in travel, being relaxed, unstressed, beaches, that type of thing. So although I don't have hobbies and interests, I have hobbies. My interests are mostly things around travel, seeing new places, being able to relax, having the money to do that is a massive interest, and, you know, spending time on a beach or by a pool and chilling. I do enjoy some sporting stuff like swimming, and when you get me in it, I actually do enjoy weight training, but it's motivation for me to go and do it. You know, I struggle with that, but when I do it, I enjoy it. I also enjoy walking and the countryside, so all of those could be considered interests, right? And then what you want to try and do is think about, well, for yourself, what problem is critical for you to resolve. And if you're looking at setting up online, hopefully those align, that is the critical problem that you want to resolve. If it isn't, then you shouldn't be considering setting up online at this moment in time. And then you just want to try and summarize all of this in a few sentences. Now, how does this relate to building an avatar? Well, once you've done this exercise for yourself and you've started to answer this for yourself, then what you're going to do is ask these questions. Who are you? How old are you? Where did you come from? Where are you now? What's their education? What's their qualifications? What's their marital status? What inspires them? What are their hobbies and interests? What problem is critical for them to resolve? And then summarise their beliefs as well. And then summarise that in a few sentences. And you will start to get this picture of someone very similar to you, probably. But like I say, that's not hugely important, because if you get someone who is exactly like you, then what you're really trying to do when you've created this avatar or niche is resolve your own problems. Or I only really want to work with people who are exactly like me, which means that when you are working with them, you're then not really listening and working with them. And that's the big danger. You're then trying to force your beliefs, because they're so similar to you, onto them, and you're not allowing for their differences. Yeah, and we need to allow for people's differences. They are not mirror images of us. So when we talked about niches, I said the one thing people don't take into account when they're looking at things like the money, you know, their issues and their problems in life. You know, we did the Get Abs Fast and we did Diabetes too as examples. What we tended not to look at was the person behind that niche. And this is now going to marry up with this to give you the person behind the niche, which makes it a lot easier when you come to your messages, your marketing, your videos, your social media content, to get out there and connect with those people online. So over the last few days, we've talked about going online, and we started with the funnel process here and what actually goes into an online funnel. And we went through all those different stages and talked about other ways to improve or add value to your funnel through affiliate marketing and other products and services. We described traffic and how you can get traffic offline very briefly, strategically, because this was concentrating on online. And then we talked through the 3 different models for online and highlighted narrow to narrow being the best option when you're first starting out online, and how to narrow a niche using the 4 P's of prune, pain, people and profit. Then we went, so that would define your niche. Then we went to defining the people better through questions to ask of ourselves and repeating those questions to ask of the avatar or ideal client, because avatar is a bit of a weird word. And why do we do all this? Because that seems like really long-winded and lots of work, and nobody likes doing lots of work. Well, we do it all because of this, sources of traffic. Because until we've defined the niche and the people that we're looking for, we don't actually know where the sources of traffic should come from. There are so many sources of traffic if you're going online. Not just like your social media platforms, for example. So you've got Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Don't know how that would be represented. Let's do it like that. Twitter. You've got LinkedIn. There's more, I'm sure. You also have to consider what the SEO is going to be on your website, and that was your long word key search. We went through that a little bit on research, but now we're looking at it from a sort of idea perspective of how you're going to get it into your copy. So this is for your targeting, and also you have to consider whether the copy is attractive and also what sort of information this niche and this avatar wants. So is it video? Is it blog? Is it live? You know, is it ebooks? Because they might want their information podcasts, for example, something I don't do, so I tend to forget about podcasts. Because the reason people go into so much overwhelm with online is they try to do too much. They're trying to get to too many people, which doesn't work because you need lots and lots of money, or you need huge sources of traffic. And of course, to get huge sources of traffic, you have to do a lot of stuff. So the point of getting this niche right down is so that we can start to make decisions about where the sources are, so we don't have to do everything. And then we can also decide what they prefer. And we might have to do that through research. It might well be that once you know where your sources are, that you give them free stuff in return for some research stuff, so that, in other words, they help you define what they want. So if we were looking at Facebook as an example, and we had our niche, we might invite them to this free Facebook group. But instead of just using it to get loads and loads of information out and build relationships, which is the first use, info and relationships, what you should also be doing is using it for your research. You don't have to have the perfect product straight away to sell somebody. In fact, the better products are the ones where you've observed what people struggle with and you've asked questions. And between these two processes, you build a product with your ideal audience, actually with them jointly. It's called a product launch formula, where you actually build something they're already asking for, they already want, because that makes it a lot easier sale. It's a short video today, because we were just going to go through, once this is all defined, then you know where to find your people, which means you don't have to do all of this. Once you've found your people, you can then do your research, which means that you A, build a relationship with them, but B, you start to produce something they really want, which means you know what they prefer, and it might be they're not bothered about ebooks and they're not bothered about podcasts, so you're cutting your work down. So we don't want to make an opt-in too complicated, because it's a procrastination tool, and some people spend weeks and weeks and weeks crafting their opt-in. So if you're just starting out online, I would suggest you look at spending a maximum of 2 hours getting the rough draft of your opt-in done. Otherwise, it's just an excuse just to waste time. So what can you produce in 2 hours? Well, you can produce a list, like a checklist. You can do a report. I'll show you that on another video, how you can get that together really quickly. You can do videos. You could do a worksheet. There's all sorts of opt-ins that you should be able to produce in 2 hours, as long as you know a couple of things. So one is, what do your audience really need help with? What do you know is the one thing they're not doing generally? So what is the one thing that they're sort of generally stumbling on? And then, do you have a sort of a neat trick, tip, whatever you want to call it, secret? Do you have a tip that solves it? So we had that example of get abs fast. We also had an example of diabetes 2 in previous videos. So this is what you're looking for. You're not looking to get them their total absolution at this point. You're thinking, well, what is they need help with? Well, they need these abs fast for whatever reason. What is the one thing that stops people getting abs? Now, I know there's going to be several, but pick one major thing. And do you have tips or a tip that solves that? Because once you can answer those questions, then you can look at, am I going to do a list, a report, a video, a worksheet, right? Now, we're going to go over in a different video how to actually put that together. But some of the things that you probably struggle with your opt-in is actually your headline isn't interesting enough. Right, so if we kind of think about headlines, we want to sort of talk about things that it's got to explain within one sentence what they're getting. So, for example, with like all these videos, if I was to edit them together as an opt-in, I might call it, you know, free video series to finally, because that's something I might identify as a problem, that people procrastinate, kickstart your online business in 90 days. So I've got a time frame, I've said that it's free, I've said what it is, it's a video series, so they're not going to get necessarily one video. This is a good one actually, because a lot of people give out fake emails, so this is a great one for getting sorry, I just had to double check that was recording, the proper email, because now it's a series, so it's going to go out over several days, even if that's like a Dropbox link, because it's quite difficult to send out videos of a certain size by email, or it might be a link to a YouTube channel that's locked down. Finally is an identification of the problem that people talk about starting online, and they go into overwhelm and they don't know what to do, or it all seems too much, or they procrastinate and life gets in the way. Kickstart's always a lovely one. I mean, you know, because we're coming up to a new year, you could even put in 2017, you know, Kickstart 2017, with finally getting your online business together, and then a time frame of how long you think it would take them to get that online business together using your video series. Now, the same thing can be done, obviously, that's about kind of what I'm talking about, but the same kind of headlines can be done with diet solutions, etc. Though you do have to watch wording on Facebook with that. So another example of a dieting solution type thing might be get your free what should we call it, worksheet that in 3 easy steps takes bikinis from no to yes. Now, obviously, I've worded that quite carefully because Facebook can be quite funny about any wording to do with diet, nutrition, body type, that sort of thing. This may actually fail Facebook. I don't know, because I've never tested that particular headline. A lot of headlines for Facebook do just have to be tested. But that should pass, to be fair, you know, depending on the image you put with it, as long as you don't put, you know, an image of like super shredded looking female in a bikini, I think you'd get away with that headline. Anyway, other thing that people tend to forget about opt-ins, we're going to talk about actually creating them in a different video, but just where you have opt-ins. Okay, so it should be the first thing you see when you get to a website homepage. You also want it scattered throughout the page, because if people do scroll down, they may not scroll back up to that opt-in. And you don't want them leaving the page with nothing. So you want this offer in a light box, on your sidebar, you want it at the top, you want it maybe midway, and then at the bottom. And then other places to place your opt-ins. Well, I didn't want you getting overwhelmed by social media, but if you're already running several social media accounts, then you want them everywhere. You want them on your Instagram. You can now change your Instagram pages to a business page to do that. Link it up to your Facebook. Get your opt-in on Instagram. Get it on your Facebook page. Get it on any landing page you're sending traffic to. In case they don't actually take the full offer, there might be something else you can do for them. Get it on your Twitter. If you blog for others, end your blog for others with your opt-in. Not theirs. You know, direct traffic to your site so they opt in on what you've just blogged about. So tomorrow, I think we'll go into how to actually create this opt-in in 2 hours, and the sort of thing that should go into your opt-in. We've talked a little bit about headlines and where you should place it. So really we should say how we're going to do that in 2 hours tomorrow. So today we're going to look at how to create this opt-in in 2 hours in its basic format, because you might want to tidy it up a little bit. So we've talked about really understanding the niche that you're going for if you're going online, and understanding your avatar in previous videos, which will help you create this quick 2 hour sort of opt-in. So when we said understand it, let's look at the fast abs niche, if you like, and who that appeals to, and the type of opt-in which we've discussed. It might be video, it might be an ebook, might be a white paper, which is quite a substantial opt-in, which you probably wouldn't be able to do in 2 hours. It might be a list, it might be a workbook. So let's say for our fast abs niche, we're going to initially go for the pretty standard ebook. How can we create an ebook in 2 hours? Well, the first thing is almost using like a mind map. So what would be your essential subjects that you would want to cover in an ebook on getting your abs fast? So I might suggest it might include type of exercise, it might include nutrition, it might include things like the importance of, say, water and that kind of hydration. You might decide that you need to include goal setting, social support. Let's keep it at 5 subjects for the moment. So you now have your 5 potential subjects in helping them get abs fast. So what do you do now when you're doing a mind map, where you break each section down pretty quickly? So we could look at sort of resistance work. We could look at things like cardio. We could also maybe entitle one section as other. I'll go into that in a little bit more. And you would do this for each section that you're looking at. So for nutrition, we might be looking at type, meal size, I can't even think of anything else. Maybe supplements would come under nutrition, or you might include that as another section. So if we looked at just this section, what do we do now really, really quickly to help us do this very, very quick ebook? So I would suggest, right, we've now gone from type of exercise. We've got 3 main headings. We've got resistance, cardio, other. Right, so under resistance, what are we going to include? Free weight, machines, body weight. These are just examples. You may decide these aren't relevant. Cardio, so you've got HIIT, you've got steady state or low impact. You've got things like sprints, or that would probably come under HIIT, but you're getting the idea. Other, you might think, well, plyometrics is the way to go. You might think boxing. I mean, this really is your choice, because it's what you believe helps develop this fast abs 6-pack that people are looking for. So now you've broken down exercise into types, and you've broken down types even further. Then all you're really looking to say is 1 to 3 points on each subject, because you want this scannable, so you don't want to have big blocky paragraphs. People don't generally read big blocky paragraphs. You really want to be looking at bullet points, what and why, in as simpler terms as you can put it together as. So once you've got this laid out, and you've looked on your laptop at old stuff that you could like just throw in there as extras, then it is really just a question of pulling it all together. And to pull it all together, you want your sexy title, you want your intro. Intro will tell them what they're going to get and why. You want your main body, which is this, all of this. Your conclusion, what they need to do next. Now, obviously, what they need to do next is often join your program, you know, whitelist your emails, whatever it might be. Within these sections, you might include diagrams, links for videos, a worksheet. It depends how far you want to go on what is a free opt-in that's going to make it irresistible to your traffic so that they actually opt in. Because we know there's so much free stuff out there that actually getting people to hand over their email is quite difficult. So the more targeted it is, the more it appeals to the style of learning that your niche requires. Almost the sexier title or the more hard-hitting it is, the more likely you are to get that opt-in, and the more likely you are to produce something of real value for these people. That's it. Email in the funnel now. So, and this will actually help you also with content in general on whatever social media you're going to be using. What we need to consider is what system we're going to use to deliver. The most popular choices are MailChimp, Aweber, ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft. Most people will opt with either MailChimp or Aweber. MailChimp, there are some free services as well. With Aweber, once you grow, you may well get to a size where you start to use Pro Tools so that you can create extra lists, tags and things that mean that they don't get information on products they've already bought. But initially, we've only just purchased Pro Tools and we've been going, what, 3 to 4 years. So initially we just used Aweber. Once we've decided the system we're going to use and they've opted in, what's next? The first thing most people create is something called an autoresponder. And this is normally a series of 5 to 7 emails that will go out automatically to anyone who's opted into your list. Now, with your autoresponder, one of the primary things to remember is your first email is the most opened. I mean, you probably achieve a 70% open rate, roughly, industry standards. So this is your opportunity, your first email, not just to deliver the opt-in, which is why it's the most opened, but to create a very carefully crafted first email, that really does bring a story or an action together and even sets expectations of what they're going to receive over the next few emails, depending on which way you go. To me, there are two types of autoresponder. You've either got the straight to a conversation, or ones that are designed so that you actually don't have contact and that everything is very much they will buy straight from email. Straight to a conversation actually tend to work slightly better because then you are engaging with the list. So you are asking just very direct, short questions, like if it was this abs fast, get abs fast, you might ask a question like, why do you want abs? Of those questions is the person will reply and get into an email conversation with you, which you can then take to the phone or Skype, and then obviously lead that to a sale. However, you may decide that you prefer to do don't get into a conversation, that they're going to buy everything straight from email, in which case you might want the more crafted type of autoresponder. So your first autoresponder, when they open, will actually set these expectations of what they're going to learn over the next 5 to 7 emails. So we're using very, very much copy language here, like learn the one secret, why most people fail. And you're actually telling them that they're going to learn this within these emails. So of course then the emails that follow that up have to actually deliver on the promises that you make in that first email. Look at this, I'm already running out of room. So we've decided within the first email that we're going to tell them everything they're going to learn in the next set of emails. How do we deliver that learning? Generally we would use storytelling. And that storytelling, I will give one example, but it can be based around films, culture, the sort of things that your niche relate to. But an example would be, well, and you can try this actually yourselves, how would the story of the 3 little pigs be converted to an email that sells your product? So how do we want the structure of those first 5 to 7 emails to look like to keep people engaged, to keep their attention? Well, I've run out of room, so I'm going to quickly do that. So hopefully you got some of that down, or watch it on replay. Right, so we need obviously a attention grabbing headline. JJ Abraham has a system of top 100 headlines. Not every single one will be applicable to you, but it really is a copy and paste job. And those have been tested over years, so they're worth using. Then you want your intro, which is going to be short, obviously. Bullet points, explanation of why it's applicable to them, call to action. Call to action being to buy your program. Now, often the calls to actions are put in the PS, because when people scan the emails, they don't read them properly because they receive on average 147 emails daily. They're going to drop down to that PS because we always know that PSs are something we tend to read for some reason. So what you're not going to try and do is perfect English, perfect sentences, perfect paragraphs. Having said that, I would always say avoid typos and spelling mistakes. It depends on your audience, but to be honest with you, if they are of a certain educational standard, this will drive them completely bananas, and you will lose that sale because they'll just think, well, if the person can't be bothered to craft the email and spell correctly, then why should I trust my money to them? It may sound shallow, but people make very early judgments. What do you do if people don't buy within the first 5 to 7 days, which is the likelihood? Let's be honest, how often do you buy from an email within the first 5 to 7 days? Well, then you move them from the autoresponder onto a list, which you are just going to email daily, which might sound like a real task, but if you're doing online business, the best return is always going to be on daily email. It's the most effective way to convert. It averages at 4%, which doesn't seem like a lot, which is why people always talk about big email lists. But that's so much higher than adverts and stuff like that, because that's really cold traffic. And cold traffic, how many people buy a service from an advert from a brand they haven't heard of? Oh my God, how am I going to write 7 days worth of emails week in, week out? Well, one way to do it is to have a topic list. It also helps your audience know what's coming on each day. The simplest and easiest way to build a topic list is to actually look at your days of the week and give them titles. We might have Monday Minute, Motivation, that type of thing. We might have a Tuesday tip or a trivia fact. It depends on our audience as to what they like. Day could be something like a follow day where you highlight other people that it's worth them following. This also helps build your influencer network, because if they find out you're sharing their stuff, they're going to more likely share yours. Could be like a Friday fun day, because most people, you know, Friday is the beginning of the weekend. Saturday selfie. Could be shopping, bargains that you've seen. You could even include affiliate links in that if it's something you're affiliated to. Sunday, again, you could do something like a selfie. Obviously not do it both days running, choose which day, or a fun day. And that then gives you a basic timetable of what you're going to do. But do you have to create all the content? Well, no, you don't, because one way you can do it is to share other stuff. Now, I'm not saying copy and paste their email. I'm saying if you've seen a YouTube video, you've seen a great quote, you've read something that you think's like hugely important, but you attribute it to the right person, so you might share some awesome information. Now, some of the work throughout the week has to be your own, because you are trying to establish with this audience that you're an expert, that you're someone that they can relate to, that you really understand them, so that they will want to buy from you. You're trying to build this trust level with them. Now, one way to destroy trust is not to regularly email, because if you become inconsistent, what it says to them is, well, if you're inconsistent with talking to them, you're going to be inconsistent in your service delivery. As you can see from this sort of weekly timetable of activities, you could actually use that also to help you plan content for any social media pages you're on. So I'm not saying share your email with your social media page. I would actually say that's a no-no, because otherwise why would they join your list? They can just see it on Facebook or Instagram. So you want to keep that when they go on your list, they're getting exclusive information, but you can still have these kinds of titles going across your social media, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be that you're using. What else can you add into your emails? Well, you'll have seen people do this, because you yourself will have received emails from people. So you might do calling out. If they don't start to take action, calling them out, saying they're never going to take action, that type of thing. You might ask them questions occasionally to build this interaction that we talked about at the Ask Questions system. You might ask them to unsubscribe. You don't need a list that's unreactive, doesn't open anything. That, having a large email list at that point, is a vanity project rather than one that is designed to sell. We don't want that. So we want to keep our email list nice and interactive. You could even have like deadlines, like 6 weeks. If you're using a Pro Tools system, you can tag it that they're moved off the list or you unsubscribe them. You could even send them an email saying, I'm about to unsubscribe you because you're not taking action. You can do some hard pitching. You could do obviously the storytelling and the soft pitch occasionally. So you can vary it up. If a deadline is about to expire, you might well be sending 2, 3, 4 emails that day to push people to the fact that the deadline finishes at midnight. And that might be on an early bird offer, an intake, whatever it is that you have a deadline on. Deadlines are incredibly important. That follows the Cialdini principles of influence. There are 6 of them. I suggest you look those up because I'm not going to go through them on an email kind of system video. However, we do need to get people to that opt-in stage, and that brings us back to this traffic. And what we will do next time is look at paid traffic and the best way to set that up to get the maximum returns for your pounds or dollars. Being paid traffic when going online or trying to set up a new online business. Now, even if you have a Facebook page, the likelihood is that it's been a bunch of family and friends that have liked the page and a few offline clients, and it's probably for an online business purposes not got enough likes to really make a huge difference to that traffic building process coming into your funnel. Now, that doesn't mean you buy likes, but it does mean that you will probably run some kind of paid promotion to the right audience. And we've already talked about niching the audience so we know their interests and their age and stuff like that, to actually build an audience for your online product. And the sort of promotion you can run would be a page like campaign. You could also run a click like if you love abs, if it was your get abs fast system type page. So that's not really asking them to do much, just click like. You can also do things like if you're posting blogs that they have to like your page before they can read the rest or get the information that you're sending. And that could be videos and all sorts, and that will be built on a template as well. So the first rule is that you actually need to build this audience. Then you want to look at engagement. Now, obviously, there's going to be things that you can do that are unpaid for engagement as well, but all of you will have noticed the reach on Facebook pages has gone down because Facebook are trying to encourage people to spend money on advertising. So although there are many ways to influence people on Facebook, you are going to probably have to look at even paying for engagement. So by paying for engagement, we would mean things like boosting blogs, boosting videos, all sort of relevant content to your niche audience. So what are we talking about budget wise here? Well, initially you'd probably, if you were to say that I've got 100% budget on all my Facebook, for building the audience, depending on the size of likes on your page and how relevant they are, you'd be looking at 10 to 20% of your total budget to build the audience. A similar amount, 10 to 20%, to improve engagement. So people don't just like your page, but actually engage with your page, share your page with others, that type of thing. Now, your final 80% then is actually on the last part of the process. So building an audience is 1, engagement is 2. The last part of the process is conversion, which is not necessarily to sale. While you work online, going straight from all of this straight to sale, even when you're also email marketing, which really comes into this process, is incredibly difficult. Whereas straight to sale offline, so in other words, they go into a gym, they get a free consultation. During that consultation, you sign them up, is a lot easier because you have that face-to-face contact. When you're looking just purely at an online business, they don't have that so much unless you take them onto a Skype call with video. So really, conversion normally at this point means sending them to a landing page with your offer, which is your free opt-in, which hopefully by now, given the amount of videos you've seen, is completely irresistible, and that then takes them onto your email process. Now, it's not the only funnel you can do when you do this conversion. You can actually do a bigger funnel, and just be aware that the more stages you have in a funnel, a smaller funnel, a conversion funnel, the more likely it is that you can get drop off. So if you could go straight to an email or a landing page for sale for whatever product and service it is. You might have a blog or a video that is particularly relevant to this product and service that you're selling, that you then drive the traffic to that first, then from that you retarget people who've clicked on that, and you show them an advert that goes to a landing page for sales for the product and service. And this retarget, so that's a paid advert and that's a paid advert, and this retarget comes from having a Facebook tracking pixel on the relevant page, which would be wherever you're housing your blog or video. And this tracking pixel will then build you an audience of people who have specifically already seen something, and then you use that audience for this advert. So I hope I explained that reasonably well for you. So this is your normal audience over here. Now this is our preferred method, because we know that the more people hear of you and about you, the more likely they are to actually convert to sale. And it might look initially more expensive because you're talking about a paid advert here and a paid advert here. But if it's a more targeted approach, the likelihood is that conversion to sale will go up. Whereas when we're doing something very, very basic, then we're going to be spending a lot of money up here to potentially get 1 or 2 sales here. And of course, everything you do is then also backed up by an email campaign for those that didn't initially convert. You can actually take your email list and put that into a Facebook audience in itself. So actually the only people to see an advert are those who are already on your email list. In other words, they've shown an interest in something you're doing. You might well import that email list over to Facebook and just advertise purely at them. Right, so we could talk about Facebook advertising and strategies and funnels in a lot more depth, but that will do for now for your basics on building up some paid traffic to conversion.